God and worldly duties. M. Sir, may I make an effort to earn more money? Master, it is permissible to do so to maintain a religious family. You may try to increase your income, but in an honest way. The goal of life is not the earning of money, but the service of God. Money is not harmful if it is devoted to the service of God. M. How long should a man feel obliged to do his duty toward his wife and children? Master, as long as they feel pinched for food and clothing. But one need not take the responsibility of a son when he is able to support himself. When the young fledgling learns to pick its own food, its mother pecks it if it comes to her for food. M. How long must one do one's duty? Master, the blossom drops off when the fruit appears. One does not have to do one's duty after the attainment of God, nor does one feel like doing it then. If a drunkard takes too much liquor, he cannot retain consciousness. If he takes only 2 or 3 glasses, he can go on with his work. As you advance nearer and nearer to God, He will reduce your activities little by little. Have no fear. Finish the few duties you have at hand, and then you will have peace. When the mistress of the house goes to bathe after finishing her cooking and other household duties, she won't come back, however you may shout after her. Different groups of devotees. M. Sir, what is the meaning of the realization of God? What do you mean by God vision? How does one attain it? Master, according to the Vaishnavas, the aspirants and the seers of God may be divided into different groups. These are the Pravartak, the Sadhak, the Siddh, and the Siddha of the Siddh. He who has just set foot on the path may be called a Pravartak. He may be called a Sadhak who has for some time been practicing spiritual disciplines such as worship, jap, meditation, and the chanting of God's name and glories. He may be called a Siddh who has known from his inner experience that God exists. An analogy is given in the Vedanta to explain this. The master of the house is asleep in a dark room. Someone is groping in the darkness to find him. He touches the couch and says, "No, it is not he." He touches the window and says, "No, it is not he." He touches the door and says, "No, it is not he." This is known in the Vedanta as the process of neti neti. Not this, not this. At last his hand touches the master's body and he exclaims, "Here he is." In other words, he is now conscious of the existence of the master. He has found him, but he does not yet know him intimately. There is another type known as the Siddh of the Siddh, the supremely perfect. It is quite a different thing when one talks to the master intimately, when one knows God very intimately through love and devotion. A Siddh has undoubtedly attained God, but the supremely perfect has known God very intimately. Different moods of aspirants, but in order to realize God, one must assume one of these attitudes: Shant, Dasya, Sakhya, Vatsalya or Madhur. Shant, the serene attitude. The rishis of olden times had this attitude towards God. They did not desire any worldly enjoyment. It is like the single-minded devotion of a wife to her husband. She knows that her husband is the embodiment of beauty and love, a veritable madan. Dasya, the attitude of a servant toward his master. Hanuman had this attitude toward Rama. He felt the strength of a lion when he worked for Rama. A wife feels this mood also. She serves her husband with all her heart and soul. A mother also has a little of this attitude, as Yashoda had towards Krishna. Sakhya, the attitude of friendship. Friends say to one another, "Come here and sit near me." Shri Dama and other friends sometimes fed Krishna with fruit, part of which they had already eaten, and sometimes climbed on his shoulders. Vatsalya, the attitude of a mother towards her child. This was Yashoda's attitude towards Krishna. The wife too has a little of this. She feeds her husband with her very lifeblood, as it were. The mother feels happy only when the child has eaten to his heart's content. Yashoda would roam about with butter in her hand in order to feed Krishna. Madhur, the attitude of a woman towards her paramour. Radha had this attitude towards Krishna. The wife also feels it for her husband. This attitude includes all the other 4. M. When one sees God, does one see him with these eyes? Master, God cannot be seen with these physical eyes. In the course of spiritual discipline, one gets a love body endowed with love eyes, love ears, and so on. One sees God with those love eyes. One hears the voice of God with those love ears. One even gets a sexual organ made of love. At these words, M burst out laughing. The Master continued, unannoyed. With this love body, the soul communes with God. M again became serious. Seeing God everywhere. Master, but this is not possible without intense love of God. One sees nothing but God everywhere when one loves Him with great intensity. It is like a person with jaundice who sees everything yellow. Then one feels, I am verily He. A drunkard, deeply intoxicated, says, Verily I am Kali. The gopis, intoxicated with love, exclaimed, Verily I am Krishna. One who thinks of God day and night beholds Him everywhere. It is like a man seeing flames on all sides after he has gazed fixedly at one flame for some time. But that isn't the real flame, flashed through M's mind. Shri Ramakrishna, who could read a man's inmost thought, said one does not lose consciousness by thinking of Him who is all spirit, all consciousness. Shivanath once remarked that too much thinking about God confounds the brain. Thereupon I said to him, how can one become unconscious by thinking of consciousness? Yes, sir, I realize that. It isn't like thinking of an unreal object. How can a man lose his intelligence if he always fixes his mind on Him whose very nature is eternal intelligence? Master, with pleasure, it is through God's grace that you understand that the doubts of the mind will not disappear without His grace. Doubts do not disappear without self-realization. But one need not fear anything if one has received the grace of God. It is rather easy for a child to stumble if he holds his father's hand, but there can be no such fear if the father holds the child's hand. A man does not have to suffer any more if God, in His grace, removes his doubts and reveals Himself to him. But this grace descends upon him only after he has prayed to God with intense yearning of heart and practiced spiritual discipline. The mother feels compassion for her child when she sees him running about breathlessly. She has been hiding herself, now she appears before the child. But why should God make us run about? Thought M. Immediately Shri Ramakrishna said, it is His will that we should run about a little. Then it is great fun. God has created the world in play, as it were. This is called Mahamaya, the great illusion. Therefore, one must take refuge in the Divine Mother, the cosmic power itself. It is she who has bound us with the shackles of illusion. The realization of God is possible only when those shackles are severed. Worship of the Divine Mother. The Master continued, one must propitiate the Divine Mother, the primal energy, in order to obtain God's grace. God Himself is Mahamaya, who deludes the world with her illusion and conjures up the magic of creation, preservation and destruction. She has spread this veil of ignorance before our eyes. We can go into the inner chamber only when she lets us pass through the door. Living outside, we see only outer objects, but not that eternal thing. Existence, knowledge, bliss absolute. Therefore, it is stated in the Purana that deities like Brahma praised Mahamaya for the destruction of the demons, Madhu and Kathab. Shakti alone is the root of the universe. That primal energy has two aspects, Vidya and Avidya. Avidya deludes. Avidya conjures up women and gold, which casts the spell. Vidya begets devotion, kindness, wisdom and love, which leads one to God. This Avidya must be propitiated, and that is the purpose of the rites of Shakti worship. The devotee assumes various attitudes towards Shakti in order to propitiate her. The attitude of a handmaid, a hero or a child. A hero's attitude is to please her even as a man pleases a woman through intercourse. The worship of Shakti is extremely difficult. It is no joke. I passed 2 years as the handmaid and companion of the Divine Mother, but my natural attitude has always been that of a child towards its mother. I regard the breasts of any woman as those of my own mother.